Many people around the world are worried about flying after nearly 350 people were killed in two separate airline disasters less than 6 months apart. As Boeing struggles to get its planes back in the air, the manufacturer has been hit with multiple subpoenas as part of a criminal investigation while its global fleet remains grounded. All this as families of the victims of the Ethiopian air crash wait to hear just what went wrong. Dan Williams has been following this rapidly developing story right from the start. He joins us now from Chicago, where Boeing is headquartered. Dan, Boeing officials were announcing a completed software fix for the 737 MAX, while federal aviation officials were testifying before Congress in Washington. What's the reaction you've been hearing?
Yes, it's a real scramble for Boeing. Their real mission is to reassure the public, that's to reassure airlines that, of course, are the consumers of their aircraft, as well as governments across the world, that these 737 MAX planes are once again safe to fly. And that is what led the company this week to bring some 200 people, industry leaders, pilots, technicians, regulators, to one of their factories on the outskirts of Seattle in order to see the work for themselves that Boeing is undertaking in order to go through and reassure that these planes are once again safe to fly. We know about these new software fixes that they say are now ready to be installed, and there'll also be further training for pilots as well. But of course, it has to be remembered that this is a key product for Boeing. It's their fastest ever selling plane. There's some 4,000 of these that are apparently on order from various airlines across the globe. And of course, the production of these planes are continuing. So for Boeing, this is crucial. But at the same time, of course, this is a time when Boeing themselves are finding that the products, it could take some time before these 737 MAX planes take to the sky again. Although this software upgrade is now ready, it could take time to install, it will need to be assessed, pilots will need to be trained, and all of that before it can then be certified once again, following further feedback. So this is an ongoing situation for Boeing, and of course we've also heard of one of these lawsuits that have now been set aside here in Chicago. So certainly there is significant questions for Boeing going forward still.
And Dan, Congress here in Washington demanding that Boeing officials appear at a future hearing. What do you think might come of that?
Well, there's no doubt, right at this stage, it's perhaps a little premature to go into too much double guessing here. But as I say, huge questions for Boeing, not least with perhaps whether there was a fundamental design flaw with the plane in the first place that perhaps engineers were working around as opposed to perhaps redoing it. That will be a key question for Boeing going forward. But of course, the big question for Boeing is the timeline. Were they aware of some issue following that first crash back in October that set them perhaps on a course of undertaking this new software upgrade? And perhaps they, the question is, would they and should they have perhaps taken more robust action earlier and grounded the planes themselves if they were indeed aware of an issue? That, of course, is still premature, as I say, and we are still waiting for a whole host of reports, not least the preliminary report from the Ethiopian Airlines crash. But of course, that will be one of the key questions, that if they were to head towards the Senate, then that would be one of the key questions that would be asked, no doubt about that. A number of questions, and also, of course, the safety feature that will now come as standard on these 737 MAX planes. That's a warning light for pilots as well, and whether that should have been coming as standard in the first place. All of these big questions for Boeing going forward.
Thanks, Dan. Dan Williams reporting from Chicago, though.